to Good Medicine Way here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We got people are coming on little by little here, and I tell people, and we do start our service when we're ready to go, not when the clock hits the hour hand. So I was at a service here just recently where they have a countdown clock. So when that hits 59, boom, that's when the organ starts and they go right into the service. But here at Good Medicine Way, we start when we're ready. And sometimes we got to wait a couple minutes for different folks to get on. I know how it is. I've arrived late too, so yeah, we wait for people to get on. So with that, I just want to welcome you. We're in the land of the Tiwa people here, and the Southwest, Pueblo people, there's Navajo people, Apaches, and then Albuquerque is made up of, well, last count I did a few years ago, there was 127 different tribes that are recognized here in Albuquerque. So there's a lot of variation, and then over the next couple days here, we're probably going to have a representative from 570 some tribes, probably one from every nation in the country coming to the Gathering of Nations here in Albuquerque. It's going to take place. So with that, I'm just going to open us up with just a personal prayer today. I was looking at some and I thought, because I got a prayer request. I just need you guys to think about that. Let's just pray. Father God, we just thank you for the four directions. And when I do my pipe ceremony, I recognize, God, you're in every direction that I point, to the east, the south, the west, and the north, to the earth and to the sky. And then I recognize that you are in every location that I pointed. And I don't pray to the mountain or the sky or the sun or the water. I pray to the creator of each one of those things, those directions. And if God, if you're in every one of those directions, and when I believe in your Son Jesus, he's in my heart, and the seventh direction I point to is to myself. So with that, each one of us has that God in us, the Holy Spirit, Jesus as our Savior, and as we recognized yesterday as Resurrection Sunday, we're thankful for Jesus and the sacrifice made so that we could have eternal life through his Jesus Christ. And at that, let's go into our service here. We're going to have our opening song here with Brian. Sorry, got bifocals on, trying to read the print here. Yeah, so our opening song, Brian will take us, Christ the Lord is risen today. But that was yesterday.
Yeah.
No, he's risen all the time in our lives.
Yeah,
we celebrate it.
Yeah, so we took the old hymn and we reset it to a native melody by the gals in Ulali. And this is the melody to the song that was at the end of Smoke Signals.
Yes.
So if you're familiar with that, that's the melody we're going to be using, and hopefully you can.
Yeah, you can sing along. Sing along too, but put yourself on mute because he might throw us off a beat or two here. Once he gets going, you'll recognize it. So.
Christ the Lord is risen today. Heaven and earth in chorus say.
way that Brian and I could sing like they sang, but we did our very best here with this new song. I hope you enjoyed that. It's a compilation here by Brian that put this together for us. We're going to go into our creation insight now, and our regular MC, Pedadaka, is going to be giving that today. So, Kelsey, as she would say, take it away. There she is.
Yes, So I am reporting to you live outside of my apartment right now. Just kidding. um, so I was thinking a lot about nature, right? Because we're talking about nature and the dominion over the land, or something or rather that Daniel Hawk will be talking about tonight. And so I was thinking a lot about like this tree right here. This is a tree that's just right outside of my front door. And today they were actually cutting off the limbs, cutting off some of the branches here. And so I was thinking about like too the wonderful thunderstorms that we've had like over the last weekend, basically. And it was like a beautiful new renewal. It was a new beginning for a lot of these grass, a lot of the trees, a lot of the animals, the dirt, everything that is natural here in Oklahoma. Okay? And I was thinking about Creator's blessing too. My family and I, me and my two children, we went to see King of Kings last night for Easter Sunday. And we were reminded that Creator was making all things new. And in the same way, we see this here uh, as the wind is blowing. We see this here, this beautiful green grass, these beautiful green trees, the wind, the rain, all of the beautiful things that Creator has done and has made new, not only within ourselves, but within His creation. So, in this creation insight, I just wanted to recognize the beautiful new life that's coming in the springtime, the beautiful green grass, the beautiful trees, the beautiful sun, the beautiful life that Creator has gifted us and has also gifted us through His Son. Creator sets free. So thank you guys for allowing me to share this insight. And yeah, I'm going to pass it back over to Uncle Casey. So go ahead and take it away, Uncle. Just kidding.
Thank you, Kelsey. Yeah, looks nice out there. Our world up here starting to turn green now too. And the only thing about here, we got rain. Amen. We got rain finally. We hadn't got rain since December here in our area. So it's very dry, and we got a quarter inch of rain yesterday, and it's just I just walked out in it, just held up and let it hit me. Got blessed by the rain. Something we do here in the wintertime, the Navajo's teaching is that when the first snow comes down, we go out and we take some of that snow and we bless ourselves with that snow. So when the rain came, I did the same thing with the rain today. I yesterday came out and I just let myself be blessed by the rain that came down. We're going to go to our first reading of the First Nations version of the Lord's Prayer, and keep working on it. And everybody's trying to learn this by heart. So it's in Matthew 6. So we'll put the words up on the screen, and together we'll read this. And several of us here got it down. I know Twyla's getting pretty good at it, and I'm getting pretty good at it. Yeah. It says, except when I get put on the spot, and then that's when I draw a blank. So, all right, let's read this.
All right. Creator sets free, shows us how to pray. O great Spirit, our Father from above, we honor your name as sacred and holy. Bring your good road to us, where the beauty of your ways in the spirit world above is reflected in the earth below. Provide for us day by day the elk, the buffalo, the salmon, the corn, the squash, and the wild rice, all the things we need for each day. Release us from the things we have done wrong. In the same way, we release others who have done wrong to us. Guide us away from the things that tempt us to stray from your good road, and set us free from the evil one, and his worthless ways. Aho,
Oh,
may it be so.
Yay. Yeah, that's a good way to say amen too when you get done with your different prayers sometimes. It's our way of saying, yeah, like amen. We say, aho, may it be so. With that, we're going to go into our smoke signals time here. Um, Laura just completed the her sewing class, and with that, she had a pageant that was uh, taking place down here at the UNM school, and all of the native students that made something with her were able to display them in this fashion show. And then they also highlighted 3 other designers from town here, and we're able to share some very fascinating, some really nice outfits that they created. Some of them were way out there. I probably wouldn't wear them, but they, but they're fashion show designers, and that's what they do. So kudos to Laura for doing that, and she's already got a request from several ladies already to do an adult one, and to ladies that want to learn to sew, who never learned how to sew in their childhood or that. So a couple things are coming up in town here. The Calvary Church, that's real close to us, just down the hill from where we are here, is going to be hosting an Indigenous celebration at their church. And it's one of the first times that they've tried this ever since I've been here in this town, 25 years. So they recognizing that there's a need, and they're going to open their doors to having Indigenous people come. It's going to be on the first day of the Gathering of Nations. So we were just wondering, is that the greatest day to pick, you know? It's like a lot of the natives are already going to be at the pageant or Miss Indian World. But I think there'll probably be a pretty good showing for different folks. There are a lot of native people that do attend that church. And I told them that I'll be there, and I was asked them if I could set up a table, but haven't heard back from them yet. So I told them I'll attend either way just to see what they're doing, and because we're so close to each other, we might be able to partner in the future if all things work out on that. So that's happening this Thursday, and that's the first day of Gathering of Nations powwow here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The other thing is to tell people that's coming, if you're coming to Gathering of Nations, always stay over to come on Sunday, because many of us here and also in town, it's a day that we have that's called Najoni Days Powwow. It's put on by the Kiva Club of the University of New Mexico, and it's put on at the Johnson Field, the big practice soccer field that's on the east end of the campus, and it is very well attended because many of the dancers that were at the gathering and many of the vendors, there's over 100 some vendors that come to the gathering. A lot of them stay over and make extra money and come to our powwow here at the Najoni Days, and that's on Sunday. Very well attended powwow, so if you ever come to the Gathering Nations powwow, plan to leave on Monday so that you can share time with us here on Sunday. Let's see. I do got a couple trips coming up that I'd like you to pray about. We'll be going to, with Jonathan Miracle, we're going to Lake Junaluska, North Carolina, where we're doing an event called Face to Face Conference. I have never done it before, but some folks said that it's a great time, and a lot of people I know are going to be there. Jonathan, Rita Gray Bear, myself, I'll be one of the speakers in a workshop there, so that's happening. And then going directly up after that to Michigan, where I will work at bringing my son back down to Albuquerque, New Mexico for the summer. So that. Anything else? You think so? Books. Oh, our book study.
The book, book study tomorrow night.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and announce that.
Yeah. So we're going through Randy and Edith Woodley's Journey to Elohe. It's a great book. It's mostly kind of about their story of how they really came to understand the fullness of their relationship with Creator through their indigenous backgrounds, and how they got involved through that also with different earth justice movements and things. And so it's a really great read. They have a really compelling story to share. And it's really good. We do that Tuesday nights at 6:30, and the link for that will be up on our Facebook page, so you can get it there. If that doesn't work for you, you can always email us at gmw4abq@gmail.com. That's gmw the number 4 and abq at gmail.com, and I can get you the link if you send us an email there.
Yes, and we just finished up. We go through the 10 values that Randy did his doctoral dissertation on, the 10 values that he finds in his research that many tribes have. Some have more and some have less, but 10 seems to be a common number among Native tribes, 10 values. We just finished going through respect, and then we're starting the chapter on accountability. And each chapter is full of a lot of Randy's ideas and thoughts that he has gone through many years of ministry. And he and Edith worked together on this book here, and it's been a good read for us. We do a different, we're going to start at this morning. We're getting down to, we probably got a couple of months left, because we go through it really slow, really detailed. And everyone that's in the book group here really shares something that they've gotten from it. And I like that, because that's part of discipleship. When you work together and you grow together and everybody learns something, you grow in your discipleship too, and your understanding of God and his story. So with that also, and then we're going to step right into our giveaway time, where we give of our resources, our talents, our gifts that we have, and we can share. We have a blanket in front here. And also remind you that thinking of doing a promotional on this. I've been thinking about calling it $20 Tuesday, where everybody on maybe once a month or twice a month, just broadcasting it out and say, hey, on $20 Tuesday, if you give, all of that money will be doubled, because we have a matching grant of up to $75,000 that we share with another ministry, but we haven't even come close to depleting that yet. So there's lots of money to be gained from that, so that we can do future ministry, because it's only temporary. Once that grant money is done, then we move on to projects and all that we'll do on ourselves, grant writing, and doing ministry here in Albuquerque. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brian, and Brian will share with you how to give.
Yeah, so we have a blanket here in person. I'm going to put our digital blanket up on the screen, and that has a QR code on it that you can scan, and that'll take you to an interface where you can give online. If you can't or prefer not to give online, our mailing address will also be up there on the screen, and all that information is also pinned to the top of our Facebook page, so you can get it there. When Casey was talking about the Nojoni Days powwow, I was reminded that they have a saying, community rather than competition, for their powwow, and because the Gathering Nation is very competitive and all that kind of stuff, but they're really about the community, and we're also really about community. So if there are non-monetary ways that you would like to participate in with Good Medicine Way, or if you have gifts, these flutes were gifted to us. A lot of the sage and stuff that we use for the smudges has been gifted to us. Drums and all kinds of things. So if you have a way that you would like to share with Good Medicine Way, that's not monetary, get in touch with us again at our email, gmw4abq@gmail.com, and we'll figure something out. We love to partner with people and do that kind of thing. So I'll get the digital blanket up there, and then I'll do a song to give you some time to do all that. Doing something a little creative, I adapted Richie Havens, who, if you're old enough, you'll remember who he is, but he first did this song at Woodstock in 1969, and it became one of his big hits. And it's called Freedom, and he kind of pulled in some lines and things from kind of classic blues and soul kind of stuff and kind of mishmashed it all together. So I've taken his version and I've adapted it to a more native context, and we're going to be trying to do that. So we'll see how that all goes. And let me get the digital blanket up. Freedom, oh freedom, freedom, oh freedom. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. A long, long way from my home. Hi, 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 hey, Yahweh, hey, hi, 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 hey, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yahweh. Freedom, oh freedom, freedom, oh freedom. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. A long, long way from my home. Hi, 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 hey, Yahweh, hey, hi, 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 hey, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yahweh. Freedom, oh freedom, freedom, oh freedom. Beat your drum, beat your drum, dance your prayers, dance your prayers. When I need my father, great father, when I need my sister, sweet sister, when I need my brother, strong brother, when I need my mother, kind mother. Hi, 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 hey, Yahweh, hey, hi, 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 hey, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yahweh. Dance your prayers, dance your prayers, dance your prayers, dance your prayers. Hi, 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 hey, Yahweh, hey, hi, hi, hey, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yahweh. Freedom, oh freedom, freedom, oh freedom. Hi, 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 hey, Yahweh, hey, hi, hi, hey, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yahweh.
Feel like a hippie back there at Woodstock there. Oh, I know. Those are good times back then. Lots happened then. Yeah, and we're talking about Calvary Church. That's a big time when Calvary Church got their big start out there in California with Chuck Smith. Just recently, because of this thing that they're doing this coming Thursday, I went back and I watched the Jesus Revolution show and seen all that happened back there in California and the movement that happened with the Calvary Church. So hoping that they do well. They're one of the biggest ministries here in Albuquerque. They have a couple campuses, and one of them's downtown on the north side, where Skip Heitzig is the main speaker there, and Clay is a speaker down here at this church real close to us. My son likes going there because they got this like a rock and roll thing going there with smoke and laser lights and loud music and all that. So he likes that kind, but the message is solid. Yeah, it's pretty solid. So so we're going to go with we got a volunteer that stepped up to read the scripture today. She put the word out there. She said she'd like to help. Michelle Reed is going to read our scripture from Genesis 1:26 through 31. Thank you so much, Michelle, for
Good
stepping in
evening. I'll be
and
reading
doing
from
it.
the NIV.
All right, that's good. I
Okay.
call the NIV sometimes it's the native Indian version.
Oh, I like that. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." And God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every grass plant for food." And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Creator's word, aho.
Right. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for stepping up and volunteering like she did. Any of you, if you'd like to, like she had done here, if you'd like to do a portion of, let's say, like creation insights, or if you'd like to do a song, like Brian was saying, or the closing send off prayer, you can do that. So turn it over to our quiet time, our silent time here with Brian with the flute song, and then I'll introduce our speaker. Reverend Dr. Dan Hawk, Asheville, Ohio. And he is a professor of Old Testament and Hebrew. And, and it was Kimberly Medicine Horn and I got a chance to work with him many years ago now, it sounds like. Man, it's been years since we were out there in Cleveland, Ohio. And so Dan has been at this a long time. He has studied Hebrew and uh, at Emory University, and he's also studied at Asbury Seminary as well. So Dan has been he's been an integral part of the movement of contextual ministry. He's been made himself available to help on many projects, and so I turn it over to him, and he can introduce himself a little bit more. Dan,
Good.
it's all yours.
Thank you, Casey. Excuse me. And thank you for the honor of the invitation to speak and share my thoughts with all of you. Um, I'm here in Ashland, Ohio, north central Ohio, in land that was once home to the Erie Nation. Some Lenape people, Seneca people were here too. Um, and it's really a joy, particularly to see Delvita. You were up in Cleveland as well. So Kimberly and Casey, and it feels like a bit of a reunion of sorts. But thank you so much, and thank you all of you for um, just the blessing of inviting me into this community. I'm in my last week of the academic year, so if I look a little frazzled every now and then, it's because there's not much left in the tank. But what I want to talk to you tonight, and I'm just going to make sure that I can in a minute. Can I share my screen? And because I got PowerPoint slides with words on them and some pictures of some old dead white guys. Um, but
Yeah, yeah, that should be
you know,
fine.
that'd be, I'll figure out how to do it. So, um, one of the journeys I've been on is to try to get a sense of how white settler folk like myself, my forebears, what did they think they were doing as Christian people, just kind of coming into lands that didn't really belong to them, and deciding that they could settle it and take it away and build their own civilization on it. So, um, what I'd like to do is share with you a little bit of where I've been thinking on this particular issue, and specifically looking at Genesis chapter 1, verse 28, which came to be called amongst English colonists the creation mandate. So I'm guessing that most of you, before I translate, I'm gonna give this a shot here. Okay. Application window, screen two. Everybody see it like a title slide? Does that work?
Looks good.
Yep. We
All
see a
right.
good medicine way, the creation mandate.
All right.
Good.
Wow, I'm surprising myself. Okay. So let me get some things moved around. So Genesis 1:28. So I would imagine that most of you have heard of something called the doctrine of discovery, which was a body of international law that basically held that Christian powers, simply by virtue of being Christian powers, had the right to take any land that they discovered and make it Christian land and do whatever needed to be done with the indigenous inhabitants so that they could create an outpost of Christendom. So most people know about that, and we might as well just start with a real quick recapitulation of that. Hold on a second. Yeah. Um, Whoops, that's not what you wanted to see. There we go. So this is just one of a series of papal bulls where basically the Pope said to the Portuguese and the Spanish, if you find any new lands that is not inhabited by Christians, then it belongs to you by my authority as the vicar of Christ, Christ's representative here on the earth. But what a lot of people don't know much about is a second pillar of this, which again we call the creation mandate, which probably was more influential in shaping the way that English colonists thought about what they were doing than the doctrine of discovery. So I want to actually take you to Southampton, England. Year is 1630, and there is a flotilla of 11 ships in 1630, this time of year, getting ready to depart for the Massachusetts Bay Colony. They're going to start a colony among the Massachusetts people. And before they left, their pastor, someone by the name of John Cotton, preached a sermon. And in this sermon, he wanted to let the pilgrims, these were Puritans, know, first of all, how they could understand and discern what God was doing. And so he put this in a very fancy way, wherein does this work of God, that is, this kind of launching of Christians to create a Christian colony in Massachusetts, how do we know what God is doing or where God is going? Well, how does God move? And he basically took a verse from 1 Samuel and gave these three directions. So how do we know? He said to these 11 boats of Puritans, how do we know where God is taking you, and how do we know that it is God? He said, well, first of all, God spies or discovers a land. So discovery is already there in the mix. And then when God discovers a place where he wants to take Christian people, he provides a way of carrying them there. And that's the flotilla of 11 ships. And then when they get there, he makes room for his people to dwell in that place. And that's where he really kind of elaborates at some length. So he asks, well, how does God make room for people? How does he make room for his people? Well, first of all, God, he looks at the Bible and he asks that question. He said, well, first of all, God casts out the enemies of the people of God by lawful or just wars. Sometimes people sell their land in the Bible, like the Canaanites did to Abraham to buy the tomb for Sarai. But here was the big place. He said, when there is a vacant place. So we know that God has made room for his people when his people find a vacant land, a land that is not occupied. And he puts it this way, in a vacant soil, he that takes possession of it and bestows culture and husbandry on it, his right it is. And the ground of this, so the reason I know this, he's preaching, is from this grand charter given to Adam and his posterity in paradise, Genesis 1:28, multiply, replenish the earth, subdue it. So where he's going and where the earliest Christians were going in their mind as they embarked on this colonial program, they were thinking that they were following the first commandment that God gave to human beings, and a commandment that applied everywhere to all nations in all the earth. Everybody was to fulfill the divine mandate to replenish the earth, to subdue it, and to multiply um, and replenish it. Yeah, I'm just going to move ahead. So there are, if you kind of begin with that premise, then when you get to a place that is in Puritan European eyes, in English eyes, a wilderness, a wild place, then that wilderness reflects creation in its fallen state. So the Puritans, when they got there, actually looked around and said, "Oh my gosh, this place is a wasteland. It's a wilderness. It's a mess. It's a wild place." So it's clear what God would have us to do. So here's John Winthrop, who is the leader of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, elaborating on this great commission, this creation mandate. The whole earth is the Lord's garden. He's given it to the sons of men with a great commission. And so why should a whole continent as fruitful and convenient for the use of man lie waste without any improvement? There are two important words there, waste and improvement. Like I said, so if you look around and you see this wilderness and it just looks wild and unkempt and unmanageable, and you think, and this is the way it looks in its fallen state, then what we've got to do is impose some order, just like God did in creation. We have to start fixing this land, enclosing it, dividing it up, and improving it. That is kind of domesticating this land, putting some order into it. And so here's Winthrop talking about the indigenous people around him. He said the problem with these people is they enclose no land. They don't have any settled habitation. They don't have any tame cattle to improve the land by. And so and here's his point, they have no other but a natural right to those countries. So as if we leave them sufficient for their use, we may lawfully take the rest, there being more than enough for them and us. Now, what Winthrop and the English colonists failed to perceive was that the indigenous peoples were taking great care of the land. Their agricultural techniques were more beneficial to the land than European style plow agriculture. They practiced controlled burning, so they created edge zones where life could flourish. They did move around. They would go to a summer camp and plant their crops in the spring and harvest in the fall, and then they relocate in a winter camp and do the hunting. But from the Puritans' perspective, they didn't own that land, and ownership was the big thing. Because you need to own land in order to have dominion over it. That's the thinking. You have to own land in order to have dominion over it. And then once you've got, and then you kind of exact that dominion by improving or developing it and setting off space so that it's an orderly place that looks a lot like England and a lot less like the peoples around. Um, so what Winthrop is saying, what Winthrop is saying is how that they're coming to improve and fulfill the one great mandate that God gives to all human beings, and that is to improve the earth. So how do we make this land look more like an English Eden than an indigenous wasteland? Well, enclose it, put fences around it, cultivate it, um, raise domestic animals on it, and build on it. So the key idea here is that when these English colonists look at the indigenous people around them and the land around them, they say these people really don't occupy the land. They just wander around. That was some of their strange ideas. And they really don't do anything to benefit the land. So we have every right. As a matter of fact, we have a mandate from the Creator to come in and turn this wilderness into an ordered Eden. And that's what God is calling us to do. And that, therefore, kind of leads to some basic ideas. Land is a commodity. It's something to be owned. And I show owning the land is the necessary condition. I should put there for improving it. And as the Puritans looked around, they say, well, again, these people move around. They're not really improving the land. They're not putting order into it. And therefore, we have a right to take all that we need because they've got a lot more of this. There's a lot more of this land than what they need. given Puritan sensibilities. So that's kind of the starting place. Because as you probably well know, owning the land was just an idea that was incompatible to the indigenous peoples of New England. I mean, how can you talk about owning the sky and the wind and the sea and the rivers and all of that? So there was just a completely different mindset at place. But this was kind of what gave teeth to the English colonists along the East Coast to basically say, at the beginning, we'll just take the land that we need, but as more and more of them came, we'll just need sometimes we'll just need to take the land in order to fulfill God's commandment. Because again, the indigenous people who are living here are not fulfilling that commandment. Okay, um, so that was stage one. Here's stage two. Um, and once you get the philosophers involved, you're really in a mess. And so here's where things really kind of went off the track. So John Locke was a philosopher that was widely read by the founding fathers of the United States. And his ideas really developed a sense of how European colonists should be connected to the land. And the first comment that he made is first principle that he made is that basically God gives land to people so that they can use it. So using the land, seeing the land as a commodity, was kind of the starting point for Locke. So he puts it this way: God, who hath given the world to men in common, hath also given them reason to make use of it to the best advantage of life and convenience. The earth and all that is therein is given to men for the support and comfort of their well-being. So again, use. That's the idea. Um, God, so we're beginning to move farther and farther away from really the biblical meaning of that text, that creation mandate, and we're just really beginning to move into some strange and uncomfortable places. Um, the land, and of course, if the land is basically given to us for us to use and to use up, then it's a commodity, and we'll just take what we want from the land. Here's the second point for Locke. And Locke said, you know, I've noticed that when we enclose our territories, we put up fences and around our homes and our agricultural field, um, people get a sense that this land that I've poured my labor into and that I've enclosed and put up fences and taken care of cattle and all of this stuff, you know, it's mine. And what he basically said is that we move from use to this sense that the land belongs to me. So land becomes my property, that I begin to improve and build up and develop based on my own labor. So as much land as a man tills, plants and improves, cultivates and can use the product therefore, that's his property. So basically, when we get some land, when I get land and I put some fences up and I say this is my property, then I have an incentive to start working. And Locke said that's what the Bible means by having dominion over the earth. Subduing and cultivating the earth, having dominion are joined together. The one gives title to the other. And so we're fulfilling the command of God. So basically, to sum up, when we think of land as property, it motivates the owner to improve it by his or her labor. That leads to this sense that I have private possessions. And here's where Locke really begins to line out the impact. When I work and try to improve my property, it creates a surplus. And that surplus is what I can trade to other people. And so seeing land as property in the American settler mind becomes this um, this foundation for a market economy. So how are we connected to the land? How are we supposed to be associated with the land? Well, we build up the land and we establish our economic system upon the base of the land. And a real quick nod to this very patriotic, strange-looking person named Emmer DeVottle, who basically said all nations around the world are subject to God's commandment to subdue and have dominion over creation and to cultivate it. Um, and basically, any nation that, as he says, disdains to covet their lands um, are injurious to their neighbors. In other words, people who have, as he saw it, nomadic lifestyles, um, and they're selfish because they have a lot more land than they need. And they're just kind of moving around and they're more of an injury to their fellow man and to the land than they are a benefit. So in a sense, colonial powers have every right, and the uncomfortable word here is to expurgate them, which is basically to erase them in one way or another. So it's getting more and more pernicious. But this idea of property and of the idea that this kind of settler nation is extending Christendom and doing what God has told us to do, it's becoming more and more, in a sense, insidious because um, it becomes basically associated with the advancement of Christian civilization. So only the Christian colonists are obeying the creation mandate, and they understand it as the ownership of property, which is necessary for the advancement of a Christian civilization and a market economy. And the indigenous people who are living there are an impediment to what God is doing, advancing Christian civilization westward, and thus in increasingly in the minds of American settler Christians, this becomes the warrant for removing people by any means necessary. So a couple of comments, and then we'll jump to the 20th century and to a few kind of implications of this whole thing today. So this is Charles Bryant and Abel Murch. It just captures the idea, and this is 1864. The white race stood upon this undeveloped continent, ready and willing to execute the divine injunction to replenish the earth and subdue it. And I should have warned you, the language here is a little raw. The savage races in possession either refused or imperfectly obeyed this first law of the Creator. On the one side stood the white race in the command of God, armed with his law. On the other, the savage, resisting the execution of that law. The result could not be evaded by any human device because God is with the Christian settler colonists. Here's another from a newspaper man, very well known. And I'm just going to move. We are a race superior of superior improvement. So you're seeing all the racialized components here. Our society is above theirs. And here's the bottom line. The earth is the Lord. It's given to the saints for its improvement and development, and we are the saints. So let's just say to the indigenous people, we want your land. Let's be clear on it, and you need to move on. And finally, we'll go to one of the great American icons, um, Theodore Roosevelt, who kind of summarizes the crystallization of all of this kind of complex of thinking and justifications. When he writes, "It is indeed," just see how anyway, obnoxiously um, arrogant this is. "It is indeed a warped, perverse, and silly morality which would forbid a course of conquest that has turned whole continents into the seats of mighty and flourishing civilized nations." You know, every every person who thinks, rightly would be impatient with this idea that North America should be reserved for the use of scattered savage tribes whose life was but a few degrees less meaningless, squalid, and ferocious than that of the wild beasts with whom they held joint ownership. I'm guessing that that's not a part of Teddy Roosevelt that um, one hears much about. So let me wrap this up. Um, why is it important to know this? And what is its impact into the present day? Well, the impact into the present day can be seen in uh, just this continual perspective on the part of government and business that indigenous land is still undeveloped land. And therefore, um, if it needs to be taken for pipelines or for dams, then we're doing the right thing. What I want to say is that, I mean, there's all kinds of ways of justifying flooding acres and miles of indigenous land with dams, as was done in the 30s and 40s along the Missouri River, displacing those people because this is undeveloped land, it's less valuable, and so we have a right to, and matter of fact, we have an obligation to develop that land for the benefit of all the systems, of all the citizens. So what I'm trying to say here in just tying this together into a bow is the thinking is still here. It's still prominent, and you probably know better than I. Peoples who are resisting even now, big business or big government coming in and wanting to develop some of the land, even when the people are resistant to the ways that those development measures are being moved. The other reason that this is so important, I believe, is because this whole colonial system that arose out of a particular interpretation of Genesis 1:28 is killing our world. And this is why it's so vital that we recover and hear and make a place for indigenous wisdom, because we need to be re-educated. Because if we don't, this whole colonial scheme is I don't have to tell you as much as I have to continue to keep telling myself. This whole colonial scheme is going to ruin our earth, unless we do something about it. And one of the first steps I would suggest is just letting people know the story. Um, White settler America um, has a whole nice fictional mythologized way of talking about why we have the land, and indigenous peoples don't. And it's it's just a series of falsehoods and fictions that need to be exposed so that we can begin to give a greater and wider place for our indigenous citizens to help us to figure out we need to be re-educated so um, that we can have a world for our children and our grandchildren and 7 generations on. So I threw a lot at you. And I know some of it was probably difficult, but I'm going to tie it up there, and if there's a time for Q&A, we can come back to it.
To go into reflection time right now instead of jumping right into questions, so people can think about their questions they're going to ask, and then we'll turn it over to Brian here with a fleet song, and then he'll moderate the question, the Q&R after that.
All right, the floor is open. Let's see.
I'll start in. Don't really have it all worked out in my head yet, but one thing that really got me is that when the popes were making these papal bulls, they were speaking on behalf of God, and so it had to be right. That was just the thought of the day, is that he's speaking extra thesia, that whatever he said was God's will, and it seemed to be very convenient for colonization in those worlds, rather than having mercy and compassion on all of creation. Just my thought there, Dan. What do you think?
You muted, Dan.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, Casey. What I see is it just an increased selfishness and self-centeredness. It's a move away from being in connection with the land and with each other, and there's just this increasing movement toward just making it all about me. The land is for me. And I can use the land. I can use my relationships, and it's just really a, a a damaging kind of trajectory, a movement that um, I think it would be well for us to recognize so that we can, in a sense, decolonize or kind of understand that all of us are drawn into that way of thinking, and it's going to affect us more than we will know. Um, you know, to the extent that we don't understand how it's working.
Yes, and I say you can't really go against that way of thinking because you're going up against God. And to say that God is wrong in what he's doing, it wasn't just the thing to do. So to follow through on what God was saying is being obedient. So, but it not everyone was a Christian. Not everyone was Catholic. And there was a lot of those that exploited the secular use of that. And my thought on that is that a lot of those that did, they might have been Christians and secular, but they're probably those that are the billionaires today who benefited from those early years of taking land and selling it and using it that they had no right to. For, just my thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I think really, I think the interpretation of the creation command is the Protestant is the Protestant way of justifying it. I mean, we,
Mhm.
and it's the same thing. I mean, the Bible clearly says that. So you're gonna, and in terms of the way that the colonists interpreted, so here's what the Bible says. You're gonna contradict the Bible?
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah,
the word of God, right?
Yeah, and
It's totally infallible.
yeah. On that kind of thought, though, when by the time the scriptures were being translated, even into Latin, but into English, certainly, you know, the church as an institution was already fairly embedded within the kind of colonial conquest structure. And I've heard a lot of people make the argument that even the way that that passage is translated is questionable. And I know, like in the Message version, when they go through that thing, instead of saying like rule and subdue, they translate that as having responsibility for the land rather than dominion over the land. So I don't know if you've looked into any of that or if you have any thoughts about like the actual ways that those passages are translated.
yeah, thanks. I have lots of thoughts. I spent a lot of time in my introduction classes on this, and I think it should be translated more the sense of take authority over and manage, because in their own cultural context, um, the image of God is a way of saying they're God's human beings are God's authorized agents in creation to take care of creation. But when it gets translated by people in Christian empires, they go for dominion and they go for ruling. That's the way they see it. And when you read all of the creation narrative, it that doesn't work. Because first of all, because the creator is not a dictator, the creator um, is beneficial. The creator blesses, and there's nothing in the story to suggest that creation is some kind of rebellious vassal that needs to be subdued. It's I think the Hebrews more this idea of of having God's authority and you know forcefully, in a sense, forcefully managing, because you've got this burgeoning creation that's popping all over the place, and God needs somebody on the ground just to kind of take care of things so that they don't kind of get too far out of the box. But um, when you get an imperial translation, you get something really different than that.
All right, Helen,
Go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Helen
And I'll get
first.
to you.
Okay. I've had a lot of thoughts as he's been speaking. Um, One of the thoughts about getting off of God's message, the promise is that their God is idolatry. They've created God in their own image. And so now they're obedient to a God of their own image that has all their flaws and has even made virtues out of their flaws. Um, I think it's good that we're looking at this, but it explains the point of view, but it doesn't excuse it. I think Western culture is still on notice. That I think we had, even in the West, we had people who were telling us that was wrong, and they had a striking tendency to get burned at stakes or excommunicated and stuff like that. But we were told that that was wrong. So I think it's good we're examining it, but I want to make sure that it's not being taken as an excuse for it, because we still, before we can do anything to reverse it, we have to admit that it happened and that it was wrong.
Yeah, I so much appreciate that comment. And I'm absolutely there with you. I think the first and one of the things I want to do, and just kind of talking about this second way, because this creation mandate is part of the myth of innocence that
Mhm.
white settler America has woven around itself, because you need a narrative to legitimate an unjust and unequal um, system. And so the first step in dismantling that system is exposing the fiction of the narrative and saying, um, this is not the way it happened. This is the way it happened. And if we want to begin to create a good world where all of us can flourish together as a people, um, we need first of all even to know that's there. It's been repressed, and we need to expose it and get it out in the open so that we can talk it through and deal with it. And if we don't, excuse me for being political, but we're seeing kind of the explosion of that whole, all of this stuff is coming to the surface because the narrative is being challenged by other narratives that people are saying this is not this is not what happened. And I think part of the huge explosion of chaos and anger and polarization is because we're beginning to eat away at that myth of innocence, and people do not like that.
Yeah, I get it that it's uncomfortable. I remember first hearing about it. At first, it's like figuring out, gosh, this is a haunted house. And then, oh my God, we're the monsters and the ghosts in the haunted house. So it's hard. I get that. But you're never going to get anywhere until you start moving through it. And I was thinking too how they were saying how they claimed the natives weren't cultivating the land. I thought it didn't stop them from going into other lands like in Africa or in Asia, where they had buildings and cities and schools and things that they might call civilization, but they colonized there too. Um, Sometimes the difference was how big the army or navy was in a place, more so than how much quote unquote civilization there was. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I appreciate your talking about this. And I think one thing I've noticed in the times, sometimes it seems like the bar for white people to be good is so low right now that almost any little thing we do, sometimes people look like, oh, that's great. Like, no, that's not heroic. That's just decency. That's what we should be doing. So no, we shouldn't be reaping in medals for that. That's just as bad. But yeah, I see that coming to fruition in this time in our country, in the political arena and others. So thank you.
Well, and I think thank you. I just very briefly, I think it has to begin with the church, because the church was complicit in this whole program. And we also, on the other hand, we also have the theology, the teachings, the traditions that can help us to heal this. But we got to get our own act together. Judgment must begin in the house of God, and let's see what we can do together to create a future with each other and walk through the hard things.
All right. We got a comment in house here from Shannon. Go ahead.
Yeah, the quotes you put up on the slides were from 17th century and 19th century, but is it really so different today? I grew up running through the woods of Michigan in places that now have been paved over and turned into subdivisions. The trees have all been cut down, the swamps have been drained, the ants sprayed with chemicals. I mean, we used to have ant hills that would be a foot high and 12, 18 inches in diameter, and muskrats and all over the place. And I mean, people would say, oh, that's nothing, they're just, just critters. But to me, they were my sisters. I grew up amongst them. And I watched a lot of it happen as I was growing up, and I hated it. Kind of how I became a conservationist for my entire life. But it's not really so different even today. I mean, we have a president that wants to take over Canada because it's unused land. It's the same. It's no different. It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed from that same 17th century mindset.
Yeah,
And I'm not sure how I'm not sure how it ever will change. I know that sounds kind of depressing, but just in 67 years, that's what I've seen.
I think you are absolutely, thank you so much. That's exactly the point I'm trying to make. I mean, those ideas are so deeply ingrained, they're invisible. And they've been repressed so long that now we've got some trigger moments and they're starting to come out. But it's always been the same. It's the way the system now is as it has been for the last 200-300 years, and it's going to continue that way until we, as I believe, as a church, begin to intentionally look at ways of coming together and having a conversations and begin building healing relationships, because we're in a mess, and the mess has deep roots.
All right, go ahead, Paul.
Oh, thank you. It's a real honor to get to speak with you and have you speak with us, Daniel. I really feel that you have gained the ability to elucidate very clearly our needs, in addition to the truth of the history, our needs as a people, not just as peoples, although that's a big part of it, but seeing what the supremacist culture has to hear from the oppressed culture and those who will advocate for it. As you're saying, it's true. It's continuing today. I mean, you still have rainforests taken away. I don't know how fast they're still doing it, but there's been some major conservation efforts, but you can't keep the big companies in Brazil from damming the rivers and moving the natives off, cutting all the forests down. It's happening there. It's happening in a lot of places still. It still happens in America, actually. There's, I think, a great danger that we have of complacency, because unless we do the work of coming together and talking in the gates, discovering what our relationships really are about, and establishing justice and fairness in those relationships, so that we can speak to power, in a powerful way, because the earth is the creator's. The earth is the one who is. I mean, you can't take away from that. It's just a matter of how.
Somehow you muted yourself, Paul.
Oh, whether the people are going to be responsible, whether they're from one culture or another, or, whether they're of the oppressed or the oppressors, for how they perceive and treat God's creation, all of his children, you know? I mean, what part was not sourced by the source? It's just a matter of he gave us this kind of free will. And I mean, look what people have been doing with it ever since Cain. And that's basically, he had the same attitude of, well, I got to show God how good I am by how I dominate the land and produce and be fruitful and multiply, instead of how well he had relationship with it and how that mattered, just as Abel, recognized that relationship with God was more important, and relationship with his creation in that regard, took a whole different nature, just as the natives have. We have respect, I mean, that's the thing. Anyway, thank you. I wanted to say my part, but I wanted to ask, where do you see us most capable of coming together in the gates and having this discussion right now?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm not sure I have a good answer other than to begin to just have find ways to come together and have conversations. I think churches can facilitate, or Christian groups can facilitate conversations. We should be the space. I mean, we're followers of the Prince of Peace, and reconciliation and healing and oneness is a part of who we are. We've neglected it. It seems to me that we need to move it into the center missionally, and to begin to think of ways that we could bring people together and to create the kind of space that allows a lot of pain to be expressed, and some very difficult truths to be spoken and heard and moved. But I'm not sure I have a formula, but I just have some general ideas. Thank you.
All right, Ipitaka, go ahead.
All right. I want to thank you, Daniel, for bringing this really hard topic, bringing this really difficult discussion here tonight. It sparked like a fire in my belly right now. Um, currently I'm studying about conservation biology, and what I'm learning here tonight is like really along the lines, um, but I started thinking about just thinking about like the way that people are, right? Like just in general, not just singling out any one particular group or family or anything like that, but um it kind of feels like we were discussing a little bit earlier about God complexes, or like people thinking that they're God, and that they have that the literal meaning of words is the literal meaning of the words. um and like I mentioned a little earlier about this song called Ill Mind of Hobson 7. It's by this guy named Hobson. But he talks a lot about like interpretations like of God and of like the Bible, and why it's important for each of us to like come up with our own ideas, because um while we may be like different people, we may be like the same but different. Um, but it's like we need to like it's really hard to like talk to someone who's hurt you, you know, like if you think about it, the as Brian usually puts it, the status quo. I think there's like is taking responsibility. It's like taking like acknowledging the things that were done, you know, um and then how to go from there. It's kind of like I keep forgetting what I'm trying to say, but it's like it's kind of hard to talk to the person who's hurt you. It's hard to forgive what was done and the different perspectives and different perceptions of what was done. And it's like the status quo somehow uh, did have that godlike complex, did think that they were superior to the land, the animals, the people that were on the land, you know, and the ambition. I asked a question earlier, like, where did all this ambition come from? If you really think creator is behind you like that, mm, like we've seen many times where people have been led astray by that idea that creator is leading them in a certain area or leading them in a certain way or using his name to like justify the things that happened and things that are happening. I don't know, like I really feel like that when we as indigenous people, I'm just speaking from an indigenous perspective because I am an American Indian woman. Um, but it's like it's hard to really say anything because even if we do say something, it's like there's no like it's not guaranteed that anyone will actually listen. And it may take several generations, but you know, I hope that one day we can all one day agree that no one really owns the land. We're just living on it, you know, we're just surviving off of it. And I don't know, there's a lot of like I said, there's a lot of fire in my belly. There's a lot of pain in my heart for this. And this is a really tough topic, and I'm really glad that you were brave enough to bring it. So sorry I didn't mean to take so long, but thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Helen.
I was going to comment that one of my favorite writers was Toni Morrison, and she was discussing that she didn't believe that the basic emotions were love and hate, but love and betrayal were the ones. She said that's betrayal is where it goes off. And part of it is that you've broken the trust with that person. That explains why it's hard to talk to that person. You don't know that you're safe with them, and you may be right, you're not safe with them. And yet we have to rebuild that somehow. I think too, it's hard when the betrayer does not acknowledge that they've done anything wrong and they're just saying move on. It's like, no, we can't move on. We haven't gone through this. It doesn't work that way. So just two observations based on that.
Thank you. Which is why this
Hey,
work
Red
is
Chief.
important.
Red
Oh,
Chief.
go ahead, Dan.
No, I'm Red Chief.
Okay. Red Chief, go ahead.
Hello, good evening. First, I want to say thank you to Daniel because this is not an easy topic to bring up or discuss. And it's going to immediately set ablaze within the center of most people in our culture who hear it. I just want to take a minute and thank you for that. And I want to thank everyone who's participated. Um, with that, I would like to add that I believe that Creator, regardless of the name you call him, God, Yahweh, Jehovah, to me, it's the name is not, though there's power in the name, it's your intent behind the name that is important. And God is love. You see, for us to heal, we have to realize that at least for me, I had to realize that the people who came and put our people through this, they were not Christians. They may have come in the name of Christianity, but God is love. God can be many things, don't get me wrong. It says it in the Bible, but God is love. And for us to begin to heal, we have to realize that anything that is not of love is not of God. You cannot beat evil with evil. You can beat evil with love. You can beat evil with compassion. You can beat evil with mercy. But you can't beat evil with evil. You can't become the thing that you despise, right? And that is the thing that I have had to learn painfully through my life. Um, I hope that what I'm sharing is helpful to somebody's ears. When I was 4 years old, I was hit by lightning in the center of my home. I was confirmed deceased for 48 minutes. 3 minutes brain damage is setting in. 5 to 7 minutes. If you come back, you're a vegetable pretty much. 15 minutes roughly, rigor mortis is setting in. I was confirmed deceased for 48 minutes, stiff as a board, and I sat up with a vision. That vision, once again, goes back to love. That vision became what is called the Federation of Aboriginal Nations of America. We're all pre-colonial tribal nations, and we've come together with a global family mindset. And that mindset is inclusion of everyone who can work together in love. And we are changing global economies. We're doing business all over the world. And the thing that even with that I have found as I deal with leaders around the globe, we're all dealing in love. We're not dealing in greed. We're not dealing in manifest destiny. We're not dealing in profit margins. We're dealing in love. How can we help you? What can I do for you? All right, I have this, you need that. You have this, I need that. And we're all working together. And anyone who hasn't heard of us, when I say us, I mean the Federation as a whole, you should look into it. I believe it's FANA Global, FANA, you can put in the Federation of Aboriginal Nations of America and it'll pop up. But if you give me a second, I can tell you I should know the site, but
I think it's
it's,
FANA.org.
thank you. But we're doing some miraculous things, guys, and it's all about love. And Daniel, once again, the highest honors, because this is not an easy topic to discuss. When I first heard you start discussing it, I was so angry. And then I stopped and I thought to myself, wait a minute, what are you letting in your ear? God is love. This man is talking with a purpose. He's purposefully speaking. He's not speaking on purpose. And there's a difference with that. You had a purpose in what you were saying. And so I took the time to listen. And by the end of it, I'm so thankful that I did. So I want to thank you for having the courage to bring this topic up. And sorry for taking so long.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Ken in-house.
Mm,
Oh, you have something, Ken?
Oh, it's okay. We can
thank you.
slide one.
Okay. Go ahead, Heaven.
Thank you for sharing. I wear a ring on my right hand that is a bird and a fish together. And for the longest time, people always talked about how Native people, or even people who didn't know their origins, only had occupancy to the land, and how you would never have the right to own anything. And I always thought it was funny how that was like meant to be an insult. But really, it was kind of like interesting to realize that anyone ever thought they could own anything, especially the land, you know? Like, how could you own water or wind? And like this part of Genesis talks about the breath of life, right? And so like birds and fish clean the water with the breath of life, and birds fly through the air, and they understand and have a very deep relationship with the breath of life. And like to understand occupancy is to understand the nature of your life as a cyclical season, like a hoop, you know? So it's always funny when it's like people talk about you'll never have the right to ownership. Why would you ever want it? You know, like hard pass. And that's not like an insult. It's an understanding about your responsibility in the circle. And I think like fish and the birds understand that, but they understand the lack of hierarchy, you know? Their environments don't allow for hierarchy. They allow for surrender to the Creator because they understand the depth of His provision. And so I think this passage is hard for a lot of people because understanding your helplessness is not really helplessness, but really about your relationship with Creator. And so thank you for sharing what you shared. It made me feel like understood about like ownership and how it doesn't really exist.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Kimberly.
Well, I was thinking about a few things. We go from Winthrop, who said there's enough land for them and us, to a time period where the intelligence of indigenous people was under great suspicion. We were believed to be incapable of higher thought of any kind, and that's why we didn't behave and act like the settlers did with the land. And that became a prominent pattern of thinking. But if you look at how native intelligence or knowledge had to be dismantled in order to justify wrongful patterns of behavior, for me, the next logical step as an Indigenous person is to talk about that conversation, but also to manage expectations. So this is a topic that's deeply concerning to most of us, or if not all of us in this room. And I've come to the conclusion that if we, as Native American followers of Jesus, are coming to a person in love, we're walking in discernment, we are walking in faith, trusting in the Creator, then we can say what needs to be said to our brothers and sisters who are still in the middle of deep sin against Creator, which is what it is. But if we're expecting them to gratefully accept that, human behavior dictates that's not going to happen. So I think grace and love and mercy, I know it's hard to do. And I know that there's a lot of reasons why we shouldn't feel that way. That's what the world tells us. But if we are really serious about getting together, walking in unity, walking in love, all of that expectation of what the other person is going to do has to go away. You know, grace and mercy and love and forgiveness. Not easy, but that's what it's going to take. So those are some of the thoughts that I had. Thank you, Dan. I could go on really probably for a couple more hours, but I won't. Thank you, Dan, for your topic.
Thank you.
All right, we have one in house here from Ken. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, so thank you, Daniel. I got involved with Good Medicine Way starting my 4th year,
Yeah.
amazingly. I'm white, have worked for a denomination most of my life, got involved with a movement called Dismantling the Doctrine of Discovery Coalition to do that, and became aware about 10 years ago of this story and it became, when I found something local I could get connected to, it was, you know, this was where I was called. I mostly just come here and listen. I feel as a person of dominant culture, my job is mostly to listen. And like you, the job I think we have is to try to influence where we can, which is back in our denominations. The Christian Church brought this down on Turtle Island, and it's up to the Christian Church to really work at changing the direction. And we're up against some big challenges right now with the rise of all kinds of interpretations of this manifest destiny. You're right, it's coming back to us. And I just want to encourage you in your setting, because you're in a seminary, correct? And so you're in a position to help shift slightly, and that's all. I think that's the best we can do right now. It is a generational project and multi-generational project. So I just want to thank you. Continue to work in your own way, in your own direction. I think those of us that can do that, we need to keep pushing hard against what we're up against, because within the dominant culture, it's pretty ferocious right now. So thank you.
Laura.
Oh, go ahead, Laura.
All rise.
Give me just a second. I gotta switch the buttons. All right, go ahead.
Hey everyone. Happy Monday. So what I'm about to say is, I'm going to put my caveat, is coming from Laura Morgan Church only. And I think, so one of the U.S. Supreme Court landmark cases when it comes to land is Johnson versus McIntosh. And this was from the 1823. 1823 was when the opinion was written. And it's basically in law school, when I went, we read this case, well, we read lots of cases, but one in particular was this one in real property. And I was so grateful that my law professor took some time to do pretty much almost an opening debriefing before we discussed this case in class. And at that time, my class for that real property class, there was probably about 50 or 60 of us. And I'm also grateful that at that time, the University of New Mexico School of Law, we had across the nation the highest enrollment of Native law school students attending at that time. And so we were about 10% of the class that we were in. We marked 10% of the student population within our class. And so I was very grateful and fortunate to be at a law school where we had presence and we had voice and we had attention by the professors, the law professors, and had gracious, honest conversations with them when we needed to do our own debriefing with them. But I wanted to go back to what you were talking about with the doctrine of discovery. And when I read this particular case, Johnson versus McIntosh, there's a small paragraph in there, and the case basically talks about saying the indigenous people did not have ownership of the land, therefore they could not sell the land to others who wanted to purchase vast numbers of land. And so ultimately it was, if you wanted to purchase land, don't purchase it from the indigenous people, purchase it from the US government because they have title to the land. But in description of the native people at that time in this case, and I'll just quickly read what it says. But the tribes of Indians inhabiting this country were fierce savages, whose occupation was war, and whose subsistence was drawn chiefly from the forest. To leave them in possession of their country was to leave a country a wilderness. To govern them as a distinct people was impossible, because they were as brave and as high-spirited as they were fierce, and were ready to repel by arms every attempt of their independence. And then it goes on. And reading this particular case at the time, I just remember I wanted to take the textbook and throw it across the classroom. Well, many times I've wanted to do that with other cases that we've had. So cases like that, which again is seen as landmark U.S. Supreme Court cases and kind of set the tone back then of how the country had interactions with the indigenous people. And it also seems like, is there any change since 1823 to 2025? That's a rhetorical question. But then now we come to the point of how do we begin to integrate the message, the gospel of good news, to our people, to my people? And how do we begin to really be honest and upfront to look at what has this country, and even, of course, there's another opinion about the founders of the United States and the founding fathers, and so I have a side opinion on that, but I won't go into that. I think what's most important is really think about the origins of our reach to indigenous people with the backdrop of the U.S. history and how, whether it's the federal government, state government, other entities, interact with indigenous people. And that we should keep that in the forefront as we begin and as we continue to create ministries for our people. I would say on behalf of our people, because we have a lot of helpers with us that are non-native, but it's coming together to say, let's really take a look at the origins. Because there's a saying that says, you have to know where you come from to where you stand today to then know where you're going. And I think sometimes we may just say, okay, from today forward, this is what we're going to do, but in absence of recognizing what has happened in the past. And so I feel like your presentation this evening helped us step back. But for myself, it has a reaction. And my reaction is trying to breathe and not resonate, not anger, it's not anger, it's just hurt, frustration, misidentification, all the words that you can mix with the word miss, M-I-S. And so when we begin to look at designing ministries, I guess my main point is we need to reflect back on the history of who are we wanting to minister to and keep that present in the forefront as we go forward. Because what happened back then, what happened to my people, and you look at the treaties and all too, that is still present today for me and for my children and the future generations, is that's never going to go away. Those things that have happened in the past or happening today will never go away. And so we have to look at how do we, not necessarily how do we put value to that, but how do we recognize that and move forward and have times of debriefing. Because for some of us, it just, well, for me, it just resonates other parts of my being that says, time out. To do a timeout and to say, what do we sincerely want to do? And how do we reconcile? And I think that's an open-ended question of how do we reconcile what has happened in the past, but for some of us, it's still present for us today. And not to overshadow that with falsity, but to bring it forward with honesty. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Add my little 2 cents to that too. I live with the frustration of what the world has become and can't change it at this level, but we can only do a small part of it. When I take flights here and there, and on those clear days when you can see the ground, and it just irks me to see what you noted, that the boundaries that were set over the whole country, it's all squared off in grids and walls and fences and lines and territories. It's just made that way. And when it all used to be vast and open for the indigenous folks there, who really were the caretakers of it, and they used the land, and knew that they were part of the land, and not above it or below it, but a part of it. When we heard it, we heard ourselves, and we got to recognize that there's going to be a reckoning. I believe that's going to come from all of the damage that we've done to the earth. So it just, next time you fly and you see the land gridded off, especially when I flew over my homeland there in Michigan and flew over the land there, it's just, you can just see the commodityness of the whole thing. Every farm had their 140 acres or so, and each one grew enough for themselves, but also enough for surplus. And that was part of the economy of the whole thing. It always grew enough. So my little 2 cents there.
Yeah, I think it's also important to recognize too that the people who want to have dominion, they they feel the freedom to just keep moving the goalposts.
Yeah.
Because at first it was like, oh, these people aren't cultivating the land, they're not doing things. And then you run into things like Cahokia and Chaco, these different civilizations that they would recognize as being civilized, but then when they find those, then they just like, well, they're not as good as ours, so that doesn't count or whatever. So it's the people who are self-centered and want dominion, they will find a way to justify their actions, and they will feel the complete freedom to keep changing the rules. So I think that's why we have to really get back, kind of as Red Chief pointed out, that like we serve a creator of love, and we have to get back to that paradigm, because if you try to play in the paradigm of the status quo dominion culture, they're just going to keep changing the rules to their advantage. Let's see. Did you have another thing, Paul?
Yes, very briefly. Great Spirit led me to this book, and I'd kind of almost forgotten I'd had it. I was thinking to read it sometime in the future, and it got buried under some others that I was planning to read. Anyway, it's entitled Embracing Wholeness, an Earth Perspective for Covenantal Living, and by Jessica Stonecipher. There's, I just opened it up just now, and there's under the heading conclusion, I'd like to read what was highlighted in pink by someone else. Life in community is challenging. Talking about triggers, right? Life in community is challenging because it goes deeper than simply forming relationships with our friends and neighbors. It also requires us to diligently live out Jesus's model of sacramental and covenantal living. It is not enough to go about our lives with good intentions, oblivious to the issues facing people in our communities. We must become personally invested in our places, and in doing so, be willing to confront injustices in our communities. We must grieve and celebrate with our neighbors, and we must affirm the sacredness of all life, even those whom we consider to be our enemies. I think that just is amazingly timely, and the Lord led me to it just now, so woohoo. Oh, matakuye. Wopila.
Well, if I may, I want, oh, sorry.
Go
Nope,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I'm just so honored by the sharing here. Um, I, I usually, I usually do this kind of presentation with, white folks, just to try to press through and puncture some of the, and just some of the delusion, and I was really second thinking all week giving this presentation, and I thought, and then as we were beginning, I just thought, what on earth am I doing? And I just want to thank you for your grace and for your honesty. The other thing is that I have an expanding network of young pastors whom the Lord is stirring to make amends. We can't change the past, but we have an obligation as followers of Jesus to make peace and bring healing. And I believe that's what God is calling us to now. And there is hope, small, but I see the spirit being ignited in young pastors who, for one reason or another, feel the weight and pain and grief of this, and are looking and praying for ways to begin the conversations necessary to move us into a good place. So thank you. Thank you. I'm very grateful.
Thank you, Dan. Let's all give him a good virtual applause. Yeah, thank you, Dan. All right. So we'll probably have you on. Let's wait another 9 months or so and come
Probably
at
about
us
all you could
again.
take.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. We're going to have our next couple speakers that are coming down the road here. It's going to be some other fine ones. We're going to have Chris Hoklatobi, who's going to be bringing us the reading the Bible on Turtle Island, and he's going to give us an introduction to this forthcoming book that'll be coming out later on. And then also Terry Wildman is also going to be on. He's going to be sharing with us the animated Jesus film, introduction of that, and also about Psalms and Proverbs. That's going to be coming out really soon as well. So some good voices coming up, and many others. That's just a couple that we got coming down the road here. And then next week we're going to have Joshua Hopping again. He's going to be sharing. He always gets me. He's always so vibrant and excited about what he wants to talk about. So thank everyone for being with us tonight. Yeah, very good showing, and you guys hung in there. And I tell people, I says, church is in an hour on Sunday. Man, we grow when we go an hour and 20, 45 minutes here. Yeah, it's like service is done when we're done. It's not on the hour. So thank you for hanging in there. I know a couple dropped off, but I know we got to go. Our East Coasters, I wish we had a way of adjusting that for them so that they could be on longer. But we're going to go into a closing round dance song. And then, does somebody feel compelled to send us off with a send-off blessing? Raise your hand, yeah, if you want to do that. Otherwise, it lands to me. All right, okay, I'll share that. I'll share that tonight. We'll go on. But if you still feel compelled during this song, just let me know.
Uncle.
Okay, there we go.
I designated someone already.
Oh, did you?
We are gonna hear a voice of heaven. Just kidding. Hear a
Okay,
word from heaven.
good.
Yeah.
Glad you shared it because yeah, I got question marks on that slot here. So glad you brought it up. Thank you. All right, we'll hear from heaven in our closing.
Yes, God Yes, Yes, God
Creator, we give you thanks for gathering us to share your word. Thank you for the things you've put in our hearts. Thank you for talking to us in your own way. Help us to apply what we have learned today in our lives and in our communities for our people. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen and aho.
Oh, may it be so. Great. A good gathering tonight. Good words too. You know, you just light a fire on all of us too. That things will take place, things will happen, and thank you for the new members that came on tonight. Yeah, you bless us with your presence here. Thank you so much. And I believe this is Natasha. For we did announce tonight of your gathering, and that some of us will be with you this coming Thursday. I believe that's the right Natasha from the Calvary Church. Thank you for joining us tonight, and look forward to your event. So everyone pray for us as we go into this weekend here. Hundreds of thousands of natives will be in town, plus many visitors from around the world. It's a busy time here in Albuquerque. So with that, I say I love you all and have a wonderful week. It's coming up. Take care now. It's good to see you, Delvina. Hey, real good. Yeah, very good. Yeah, all of you. Thank you so much.